Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be asking the possibility of Tier 11 tanks coming into World of Tanks Blitz. Wargaming has done some absolutely wacky things in the past. A great example of this are missiles. No other variant of World of Tanks has ever had missile-firing vehicles, but Blitz sure managed to bring the Sheridan missile into the game, which for a while was a tech tree vehicle. Only until me and 90% of the player base complained that they were unfair for the game, did Wargaming listen and remove the tank and finally put it into only game modes, which I agree with. That was the right decision. Honestly, the Sheridan missile was as close as we're currently getting to a Tier 11 in Blitz. The vehicle's capabilities to shoot missiles over a ridgeline were definitely stupid and gave it a big advantage over every other tank in the tier. But apart from that, there's not really any tanks that would closely resemble a Tier 10 in World of Tanks Blitz. Or Tier 11, I should say. Most of the Tier 10s are pretty balanced. I mean, yes, some of them are slightly better than others, but I can't really say they're so far ahead as if you would get a Tier 9 versus a Tier 10 to a Tier 11. But it's not out of the question that Wargaming would bring Tier 11s into the game. And the reason why is because there are already Tier 11s on the World of Tanks Lesta variant of the game. This video here was posted 4 months ago on the World of Tanks Lesta official channel. Now, Lesta and Wargaming are separated. However, they are still very similar companies. They're both World of Tanks, just different companies and balancing on them. We can see that the Object 452K is, interestingly enough, a Tier 11 on World of Tanks, which is weird because it's a Tier 10 on World of Tanks PC for Wargaming's client, and it's a Tier 10 for us on Blitz. Or actually, no, it's a Tier 9 for us on Blitz. So it's interesting that every single different variant of World of Tanks is a different tier. The MBTB as well is a Tier 9 on Blitz, yet is going to be a Tier 11 on the Lesta variant, which is just really interesting when you actually think about it for all of the different balancing factors. And there's a lot of other Tier 11s as well that the Lesta variant has, some of which aren't in either game, either in testing. The MBTB isn't released yet, but it is a tank that Wargaming is working on for Blitz. This is the BZT-70. It honestly looks sick. It's a quad-tracked Chinese heavy. Thing looks like a frickin' chonky beast. Look at that thing. Looks like a T-95 mixed with a Chinese heavy. Honestly, I really hope that that thing comes into Blitz. And then, yeah, the Object 279. This is obviously a tank that has been known for a while as the nuclear tank, a vehicle that could withstand a nuclear blast. And I don't even know how Wargaming would possibly balance this tank if it were ever to come into Blitz, but yeah, it's kind of a wild and wacky vehicle. Also, my YouTube died there for a second, but yeah, so these are all the Tier 11s that are coming into World of Tanks PC's Lesta variant. They all look pretty sick. They all look really, really cool. I think the 279 and the BZT-70 are definitely the two that I would be most excited for. But obviously, as of right now, that is not something that we have access to in World of Tanks Blitz, because Tier 10 is the highest tier. The question, as I said before, is will Wargaming consider putting Tier 11s into the game? And to be entirely honest, I don't think it's that far out of the question. As I mentioned before, Wargaming has already tampered with weird and wacky ideas. They've already put tanks into the game that have moving armor, like the Titan HND, the Titan 54, and the Charioteer Titan. And while these vehicles may have been rather disappointing in their capabilities, we have another one that is coming into the game probably within the next couple of months, which is a Tier 8 Heavy. So Wargaming is continuously experimenting with moving armor vehicles. As I mentioned, they've already released tanks like the Sheridan missile, which are, well, were entirely overpowered and completely game-changing. My guess is Wargaming said, okay, well, artillery isn't really viable on Blitz because the maps are too small. So how can we add artillery into the game without really adding it? And they said, I know, let's give the Sheridan homing missiles. And that's what they did. So there have been a lot of wacky, weird, inflatable tube-man ideas that Wargaming has brought into Blitz. And I really don't think it would be that far out of the question if Wargaming did experiment with Tier 11s at some point in the future. Now, do I think that they would be added within the next year? No. But I do think that if Wargaming wanted to increase their player numbers and get more people playing the game, Tier 11 wouldn't be that far out of the picture. The only problem I have with Tier 11 is it just doesn't sound uniform. I feel like if you have to add a Tier 11, you also have to add a Tier 12, because 10 just sounds nice. That's why Wargaming picked Tier 10 all the way back in the day. 1 through 10. 1 through 11 just doesn't sound right, if that makes sense. At least to me, it just sounds like a weird idea. So, I feel like if Wargaming wants to add a Tier 11, they should also add a Tier 12. I don't think they should add tiers higher than that, and I think even putting in Tier 11s is already pushing it. Tier 10 already as it is seems pretty hard for Wargaming to properly balance, at least in Blitz. So if they were to add higher tiers, I have no clue how that would actually end up working. Would we see mediums with 4,000 plus DPM? Would we be seeing heavies with 5,000 hit points? I don't know. And it would be something that would be entirely up to obviously the balancing team to figure out. It's kind of cool to think about, though, not gonna lie. However, nothing's obviously gonna happen until the Unreal Engine for this game is released. I think that there's a much higher likelihood of Wargaming releasing vehicles like the Stritzvan 103B and the UDES 1516 before we get vehicles that are in higher tier. But, personally, I am much more excited to see vehicles like the Stritzvan and UDES come into the game. For any of you that are unaware of these two tanks, they feature hydro-pneumatic suspension, allowing them to change the degree of tilt that they work. Their back track wheels push down, their front ones go up, and it gives them artificial gun depression. Essentially, the Stritzvan and UDES can achieve upwards of 13 degrees of gun depression, which is absolutely insane, and it makes them some of the craziest tanks on World of Tanks PC, and they're very fun to play. And I think with Unreal Engine coming into the game and more realistic physics, I think that there is an entirely high possibility that Wargaming will add these vehicles eventually. I think that it'll happen at some point. And you guys can let me know in the comments, obviously, what you think. But I seriously do think that there's a pretty high likelihood that we will be seeing the Stritzvan 103 and the UDES come into Blitz within maybe the next year or two. Because I think it'll bring a lot of players into Blitz. I think that a lot of people are going to be really excited for them. To be fair, it wouldn't be really that hard to do. On World of Tanks PC, for the UDES, for example, the hydro-pneumatic suspension is automatically enabled, which means that you wouldn't even need to press a button for it to work in Blitz. And that's the same for the Stritzvan. I feel like if Wargaming made it so when you entered sniper mode, it automatically swaps you into siege mode, which then would allow you to drive slower and use the tank, you know, the way it's meant to be, I think it would be entirely possible to do. So I think it would actually be pretty dang sweet. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. This is just a video that I thought would be an interesting one to post, because it's always a cool idea to think about the possibilities in the future of World of Tanks Blitz and what may come. So let me know in the comments down what you guys think, and hopefully enjoy today's video. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!